Welcome back. We have a very heated topic right here about domestic violence. And you're not just here to have discussions as usual. We pray that we have discussions unusual that will transform your life. And while on the break, we shared a few things that really triggered my interest, especially what Apostle Geshimo shared about in his early days, in his early years of Christianity, domestic violence was not allowed in church. And also what you've just shared, that you came from a neighborhood whereby domestic violence was very prevalent. But a time came when young men said, tukiona mahali manyumba ambayo kuna vita vya jamii,
we intervene.
And
it worked. It seemed to work. Those were young guys about 18, 19, 20 year old, and they had grown up in domestic violence and they hated seeing their mothers being beaten up. So they gang together and they said, in this neighborhood, no man will be allowed to beat his wife. If you beat your wife, we'll respectfully come to your house, tell you, Buddha, stop this. If you don't stop, we intervene and beat you up. I remember one day we were in a matatu with those young guys, some of those young guys. And as we were driving down Langata Road, it was somewhere in Nairobi, we saw across the road a man beating his wife in broad daylight, na amebeba mtoto kwa mgongo. Do you know we commandeered the matatu? Commanded the matatu driver to stop the matatu.
Simama.
Hata kabla isimame poa, sisi ndio tumeruka nje, young guys. We ran towards the couple. And just before we could pounce on the man beating his wife, the wife intervened and said, achandani nae, makosa ni yangu. And you know what we came to learn? As young guys, we were young Christians. Maybe that was not the right way to handle it, but we were doing what young guys thought was a solution. And we learned that at times you may want to help a disputing couple, but it is up to them. Yesterday I had a counseling session in my office and I told the couple, because the husband was threatening to kill the wife, I told them, listen, I can only advise you to do this and to do that, but the decision is completely yours as the wife to determine whether you will continue staying in that home or to leave. There was a girl who was murdered not long ago here in Nakuru. And alikuwa anadungwa visu na hazi yake. Familia yake inamwambia ni aje, si utoke kwa hiyo hazi yako, atakuua siku moja. Na alikuwa anaona mchezo, anakuja home kwa familia anasema, nini vile lindunga visu, huyu siku moja haki ataniua. And the family was coming to our church. Eventually, her body was found somewhere.
The family was coming to your church?
Yes.
My goodness.
And finally one time, the body of that woman was found somewhere after she had been killed so horrendously. So even as we talk about domestic violence, it's the decision of the couple. It's the decision of the woman, because you can opt out. You don't need to die in the name of love. Proverbs 21:19, like we just mentioned, says, you had better live in the wilderness than share a house with a violent person.
So, Apostle Geshimo, domestic violence resulting sometimes to murder, resulting to women almost castrating their husbands, we've had in different parts of the country, and it's been very horrendous. And someone would be watching and saying, I am in this kind of marriage, and I feel the reason why I do this ni kwa sababu ya stress, sio kutaka, it's because I'm financially stressed, sahi hakuna kazi juu ya coronavirus, sijazoea kukaa hapa na mama, kwa hivyo, and they give all sorts of reasons, and maybe the reasons are valid. What would you say?
Well, as much as the reasons may look valid, but the big or the weighty thing is, it is not valid to generate any form of violence. The issue here is that as a man, you should be in control. You should be able to control your anger. You should be able to control your emotions. And especially when you are born again, anger should not control you. You should be able to control that anger. You know, the Bible says in the book of Ephesians chapter 4 and verses, I think, 25, be angry, but don't let the sun
go down in
anger. With your anger.
And be angry and do not sin.
Be angry and do not sin.
Yeah.
So you can be angry, but don't sin. Because the moment you slap that wife, the moment you pick a knife to stab that wife or that husband, already you are a murderer. And if you call yourself a Christian and you are doing that, oh, I question your Christianity. In other words, and this is what we have to understand as human beings, we have been given power and authority over everything else, even our own feelings. Because all this anger, all these emotions that bring up anxiety, you know, they are part of creation, but we can be able to have
We
control.
have authority over them.
We have authority of them. You don't go loose,
Oh,
whereby
yes.
you pick a knife to kill somebody. It is,
Remember, you're a Christian.
There is no reason you can explain that. And when you are Christian, of course, and you do that, already you are murderer. You are a candidate for hell. Because thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not kill. God knew when he created us, and that's why he put the 10 Commandments, that of course we'll have these kind of stresses, as we call them in modern language. And he knew, yes, these emotions will be there. Somebody will look at somebody's wife and covet over that, or covet over the wife, or admire somebody's wife or somebody's property, covet over somebody's property.
Yes.
God knew all these things. And that's why he provided us with rules and regulations, so that within those rules and regulations that God has given us, we can get them and say, I will not do this. I will not covet
You mean the
somebody's
solution
property.
is in your hands. It's not even in the hands of the pastors.
You are the one
Yeah.
with the
You are the
solution.
one with the solution.
Exactly.
Very true.
Yes.
Wow.
Very
And the people who would be watching us right now, and Pastor Andrew, they'll be saying, Rajwa Mimi, I grew up in a violent home. And so whatever I do is a replica of what I saw.
Yes.
And there's so much of that.
And there is a lot of truth in that, Super. Because psychologically, they were prepared to be violent husbands. And that is why you should never beat your wife, even in front of your children. Because you're teaching your children something that they will repeat later on in life. And you know, they tell us that sons who grew up in violent homes will end up either beating their wives or rejecting marriage altogether. And thankfully, number 3, they can decide to do the opposite of what they saw their fathers doing. Unfortunately, also, girls who grow up in violent homes grow up thinking that because my dad is my first definition of a man, I think it is normal for men to beat their wives. So when they tell us that girls grow up to marry men who look like their fathers. So your daughters may end up marrying violent husbands because you defined to them that a husband should be violent. And I want to, at this moment, encourage the men out there, like Apostle has just said, look at other ways of resolving the issues at hand. Don't choose violence. Proverbs 11:29, it says that he who troubles his own house will inherit the wind.
Yes.
If you trouble your house, you are cursing yourself. You can never grab the wind like this. And so God is telling you that if you mistreat your family and lose them, you will live to regret it later on. Sijui kama ushiona wazee wengine walipiga bibi, wakafukuza watoto, and at that time they were around 35 years old, 40 years old. Wanarudingi kurudi home around 55 years, 60 years, wamezeeka, hawana nguvu. But what do they find at home? A woman who learned to survive without a husband, and she's no longer interested in him. Children who grew up not knowing their father, they are not even interested in the father. Na kamzeka nekiango stool pale inje, kaote jua kakikaukanga. And when God blesses those children and they go abroad, unasikia they keep inviting their mother.
So the seeds you are sowing, Apostle Beshimo, of domestic violence, they will grow.
Yes,
They will
grow. And when they grow, at some point in life, you'll have to harvest.
Yeah.
And of course, because you planted them, you'll also eat them.
Yeah.
I have seen it. Well, at my age, I have seen, some of these violent men. And, they end up separating. And bibi anaenda pamoja na watoto. Na yeye anaachwa. Anajaribu bibi wa pili, haifanyi. Anajaribu wa tatu, haifanyi. I remember having met a colleague working with the UN, and we were talking about family. I asked him, are you married? Yes, Dan, I'm married, but this is my fifth marriage, and I don't know if it is going to survive.
They don't end up well.
So, marriage becomes a cycle that never settles. And if it never settles, somewhere down the line, you'll end up just like what Pastor Mwangi has said, to be put somewhere. And I have seen those wazees. Anawekwa mahali. Akiongea watu wakisikia anaongea pale, niki aroiga liu. Yeah?
Nobody wants you.
Kama ni yule, hiyo ni Kikuyu, niki aroiga. Anasema nini? Alafu kama ni chai, kuna tafutwa ile kikombe, ambayo pengine imetoka rangi. Ile kikombe ya zamani. Anawekewa. Shika mpelekee.
Because
you
of
know,
the
you are
seeds
treated
Because
like
they never
no
end
dignity.
well.
Oh my goodness.
You never showed dignity.
And you can't
And you
receive
planted
it.
a seed of lack of, dignity and respect for other people.
Yes.
So the same now
The same
will
now.
hit back at you.
Yeah.
And that is the Bible.
Psalm
Whatever man
140,
sows,
Psalm
that
140
he
and
reaps.
verse 11.
Yes.
It says that violent pursues the violent man.
Yes.
There's nothing to expect
Yes.
but violence and frustration. Those people who beat on their wives like that, they never end up well. And think about it, Apostle. The woman you're beating is somebody's daughter.
Yes.
So you're sowing the wrong seed that one day your daughter might be beaten up. How would you feel if your daughter was beaten up?
Very
by her
bad,
husband?
of course.
So the woman you're beating is somebody's daughter somewhere. The parents may not be strong enough to avenge for their daughter, but there is a God in heaven. He says in Psalm 140 and verse 11 that violence shall pursue the violent. And then he says that the one who troubles his own house will inherit the wind. So there is so much to lose. Your prayers go unanswered. That is another effect of violence in marriages. Our Apostle Peter says that husbands, do not be harsh to your wives, lest you hinder your prayers. 1 Peter chapter number 3. In other words, God is telling you, if you mistreat my daughter, because your wife is God's daughter, don't even bother talking to me. Because really, would you befriend a man who is beating your daughter? Similarly, your wife is a daughter of Zion. Her father is God in heaven. And he's saying, if you trouble my daughter, don't talk to me. Don't pray to me. I will not even answer you. That is the loose translation of 1 Peter chapter number 3. That don't be harsh to your wives, lest you hinder your prayers. There are men that I know who are struggling today because somewhere down the line, they broke a woman's heart, they battered their wives, they left them wounded, and now they begin businesses that will not prosper. They go to keshas and make prayers that God does not answer. Because when you are harsh to your wife, you hinder your prayers.
Wow, Apostle, we've got 1 minute to go, and those are very, very profound words. So as we wind up this particular podcast, there's someone watching and they're saying, hey, I really want to turn my life around. I think I've been working as a violent man, husband or wife to my partner, and I've had the effects of being violent. I've had the results. I've had how it will affect my walk with God, my life, my aftermath life. So what would you say?
What I would like to say here is that violence does not pay. And a violent person eventually is the loser. Don't look for any other loser. You lose. Eventually you lose. And watch me, I'm speaking from experience because I have seen, I have talked, I have counseled people. You will be the loser. And instead of being the loser, why can't you change? And you have the power, you are within the capability of actually bringing things under your control. And God has given you that power to be able to keep away from violence, because violence does not pay.
It never pays.
Violence does not pay. So there is no big enough reason. Should it be the COVID? Should it be the stress, the financial stress, businesses falling down? No big enough reason to justify your violence towards your spouse. Keep loving them and praying with them. And of course, your heavens will open. Thank you for watching Ask the Ministers of God. My name is Super Waroy. Next week, we've got a date.